beautiful people, welcome to Bree Talks Books. I'm Bree, and you already know I'm here to talk about books, so let's go. In today's video, I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. So yeah, I know it's past the midpoint in the year, but I'm new here, so it's my channel and I make my own rules, and I wanted to do this tag anyway. I really love watching it, and I think it's a good way to get a good sense of what people's reading tastes are, so I wanted to do that for you guys. Also, I just want to talk about books that I read earlier this year and things that I'm still looking forward to reading, so yeah. For starters, I've read 34 books so far this year, so yeah, I'm behind on my reading goal, but it's fine. I wasn't even supposed to set a Goodreads goal this year. Definitely told myself I wasn't going to do that because I didn't want to put pressure on myself, but I did anyway, and here we are, and I'm behind. It's fine. I'm only 4 books behind, so like, that's definitely not bad, especially since I've been in like a reading slump for probably since April. So 3 or 4 months of a reading slump, and I just got out of it like this month. It seems that a lot of people took advantage of this time and are reading more than they ever have before, but I didn't do that. I don't have an excuse other than that, you know, we're in a pandemic and my focus wasn't on reading. Books just like weren't holding my interest above, you know, all the panic in my brain, but it's fine. We're doing better now. I'm on like my 5th book for August already, and that's exciting. So yeah, things are looking up. And as far as the prompts go, I'm going to do my best to not repeat books for the prompts, and also I'm going to do my best to stick to 1 book per question, so hopefully I'll do okay with that. Just know that there's probably multiple answers for most of these. So question number 1, what is the best book you've read so far this year? So for this one, I definitely have to go with The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. So this is an adult fantasy novel. It's kind of difficult to explain. It's really whimsical, but it follows Zach. His middle name is Ezra, so one of the characters calls him Ezra, but his name is Zach. And anyway, when he was younger, he discovered a secret door, but he didn't open it. Later on, in present day, he's a grad student, and he's in the library when he discovers a book, and in the book he's reading about a kid who discovers a door and like doesn't open it, and then he realizes, oh, this book is about me, and he's wondering like how he's a character in the book and why does this book like know his life. So yeah, so this is when he gets wrapped into, I don't know, this secret adventure with a couple other characters. He's not really sure if he can trust them. He's trying to discover the door. And basically, they're trying to get to the Starless Sea. There's people who are trying to like erase the doors. I don't know, there's just all this stuff going on. So I really enjoyed the characters in this book as well as the writing. Like the writing is my favorite part of the book. It's super beautiful, but it's not for everyone because it's like very flowery writing. Lots of metaphors and things like that, but as an English teacher, that is my jam, so I really loved that. It's a book about books, and in the story, there's like stories within stories. It gets a little bit confusing at times. I don't usually reread books, but like this is a book that I definitely plan to reread. It was really good. It's like so good that you don't even care that you were confused. It was just like, wow, that was like an amazing ride. I don't know all what happened, but like made me feel things, and it was entertaining. As a good book. I don't know, this is really rambly and that was a terrible review. Read this book, it's good. Question number 2, what is the best sequel you've read so far this year? So for this, I definitely have to go with Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. This has mixed reviews, and I was like a little hesitant when going into this because I knew people who loved it and I knew people who like hated it and thought it didn't need to happen. The first book, Vicious, was originally a standalone, so some people felt like it didn't need to continue. I was happy that it did. I also read Vicious at like the end of 2018, so I already knew that Vengeful was coming out, or had already been out. I don't know when this came out. Either way, I already knew it was gonna be a thing. So Vicious is an adult sci-fi novel, and it follows Victor and Eli. They're 2 college roommates, and basically they're trying to discover how to become extraordinaries, or EOs as they're called, are people with supernatural powers. They basically figure out that in order to do this, you have to have a near-death experience. So at the beginning of Vicious, Victor has just gotten out of prison, and basically we're following 2 timelines. So we're following present day as well as when they were in college. So like the backstory of how they became EOs and why basically they hate each other and are trying to stop each other. the sequel, Vengeful, follows them as well as other characters and like introduces some new characters, and I just really enjoyed it. Question number 3, what is a new release that you haven't read but want to? So I could name a lot of different books for this one, but I'm gonna go with The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. All I know about this book is that it's an adult fantasy novel, and basically it follows, or the characters are named after the different boroughs in New York. That's all I know. It's N.K. Jemisin though, so it's probably amazing and I want to read it. Next we have biggest disappointment of the year. So for this one I'm going with the only book that I DNF'd, did not finish, and that would be All the Stars in Teeth. This is by, I don't even know, Adalyn Grace. So this book I got in an Owl Crate box, and I was like super feeling it, probably like the first 75 pages, and then I wasn't anymore. I ended up reading, I read most of this book. I didn't count it on Goodreads though, so I could count it and say I've read 35, but I didn't finish it. But I got like, I don't even know. I got really far, but I removed the bookmark, which means I DNF'd it. This is a YA fantasy novel. It follows, I don't know the character's name, but from what I can remember, she's heir to the throne. She has magical abilities, and her powers are like pretty gruesome, and I don't know, they're trying to get to this other part of their world. She's with a pirate, and they meet up with a mermaid, and there's a lot of stuff going on. I feel like the premise of the story was really good, but like with the pacing, I felt like everything was just always thrown at me, and it's not really like it's not long. And there were definitely times where I was like, oh, like that's really cute, or like, oh, this is fun, but then it'd be like, wait, what? Because we would just be all of a sudden like in a new place, it seemed like, and I just couldn't keep up. So I wasn't really feeling it, so I stopped reading it. Biggest surprise of the year would definitely have to be Daisy Jones and the Six. I read this book on audio, but this is a historical fiction novel by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo last year, and I really loved it. But Daisy Jones and the Six like didn't really appeal to me, but I guess neither did that one. So maybe I should have known. Maybe it shouldn't have been a surprise. But anyway, so Daisy Jones and the Six takes place in like 60s, 70s time period, age of like rock and roll. But it follows Daisy Jones and the Six. So they're a band during this time, and they're like, they had the #1 album, and then they broke up and never made any music again, and you don't know why. The story is told in interview style, and it was just really interesting to read. I usually don't like fictional celebrity type stuff, but I picked it up because everybody kept saying it was a really good audiobook, and yeah, they weren't lying. It was excellent. I listened to it in like a day, or like maybe 2 days, but like really fast. I usually take my time with audiobooks, and this one I finished super fast. It's a full cast audio, so that worked really well, especially with the interview style of the story, and it just made it really interesting, and I enjoyed it. Definitely look up the trigger warnings for this book. I know that there's drug addiction in the book based on the time period. There's like lots of stuff like that. So if that's something you're sensitive to, just make sure that you just look up all the trigger warnings. So the next question is, who is your favorite debut or new to you author? And for this, I definitely have to go with Elizabeth Acevedo. I read The Poet X and Clap When You Land this year. I loved both of them. These are both her novels that are written in verse. I also do have With the Fire on High that I still need to read, but these are really good, and her writing is amazing. Both of these are YA contemporaries, lots of representation in here, and Elizabeth Acevedo is a Black Latinx author, so her stories definitely feature a lot of Spanish culture and her heritage. So highly recommend both of these. So the next question is, who is your newest fictional crush? I honestly don't really have one. I don't often have fictional crushes when I read books. Like, I'll be like, oh, they're cute, and that's fine. Like, I'm happy for like the other character or whatever. Like, I'm really picky. Like, if you're not Kaz Brecker, I don't care. If you're not willing to like risk your life and rip someone else's eyes out, in my defense, like, I don't know. You're not doing the most, and like, I need you to do the most. Anyway, I'm gonna go with Red from Get a Life Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. I recently filmed a review for this, so if I end up posting that, I will make sure to have that linked. But this is a super cute adult romance, and Red is just like an amazing person. So I don't know, he has a good personality. I'm basic, so he's funny and has a good personality, yay. Alright, the next question is, who is your newest favorite character? So for this one, I'm just saying the whole book, and that is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This follows 3 different perspectives, and I love all 3 of them. I can't really get into details about it because of spoilers, but basically this is an adult sci-fi fantasy novel. It's dystopian. It's the end of the world, essentially. The magic system in this book is really cool. Like, the people with magic use like earth energies and things like that, so they can like cause earthquakes and different things. This was really cool, and I'm really excited to read the rest of the trilogy. There's a lot of really good representation in here. It's basically like a journey, and that's really all I want to say about it. Alright, for question number 9, what is a book that made you cry? Now, I cry really easily, so half of these books that I've already mentioned definitely made me cry at some point or another. But I'm going to go with The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. This is the first book in an adult trilogy. It's a fantasy, because duh, I'm reading it. And basically it's it's like a historical Russian-inspired fantasy novel, and it has like a lot of folklore. It's very atmospheric, and it follows our main character, who I can't remember her name. Oh, yes, it follows Vasia. I think I'm saying that right. There's a lot of words in this that I'm like, I don't know if I've said that right. Like, there's a whole dictionary in the back of the book with the Russian words. So yeah, anyway, basically she can see like the different spirits and the different magic around her land. And her father remarries, and her new stepmom can actually see the spirits too, but there's like a priest living with them because stepmom is super religious, and she thinks that all the stuff that she's seeing is evil and different things like that. So yeah, there's something that happens. It's a spoiler, so I can't get into it, but basically near the end of the novel, I was bawling my eyes out, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I pretty much felt like so about the first book, to be honest. It was slow for me. Like, it's a short book, but it took me forever to read because I didn't know the words and there wasn't like a whole lot happening. Like, it was definitely interesting the whole time. I wasn't bored at all. But it was just like a slower paced novel, and I was like, I can tell that it's going to be a really good series. It was just the first book, and trying to get acquainted with all the different characters and the world. It was a lot in a few pages, but the end of this novel was epic, and I loved it, and definitely made me excited to read the next one. Question number 11, a book that made you happy. So, if you can't tell, I don't read a lot of happy books. But they make me happy, and that's what matters, right? But no, this one actually really is happy. So I read A Curse So Dark and Lonely, and this is, I forget who it's by, Bridget Kemmerer. I hope I said that right. So this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I'm obsessed with Beauty and the Beast. For those of you who don't know, like, my cat's name is Belle and everything, so like, it's not just because she loves books, okay? It's not. So this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's a YA fantasy novel, and it's super fast-paced, and I just had a really good time reading it. It's dual perspective, so we're following Harper, and she has cerebral palsy, and she's from our world. Basically, she ends up being transported to the Beast character's world, Prince Ren, and she, you know, has to fall in love with him in order to break a curse that she doesn't know about. I really liked the updated like aspects of it. She's from DC and is very much like modern, but when she's transported to the other world, very much the traditional classical fantasy setting, and she's like questioning all of these things, like she doesn't get it. I'm not sure about the cerebral palsy rep. I thought that it was done well, but I'm not from that community, so I can't really speak to it. This was another book that I read really fast. The pacing of this was just really fast and like really fun, so I was just happy the whole time reading it. Question 12, what is the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year? And for this one, I definitely have to say A Phoenix First Must Burn. And this is a collection of short stories edited by Patrice Caldwell. It's a bunch of different sci-fi, fantasy inspired stories by Black authors. So I haven't read it yet, but I'm very excited to, and it's gorgeous. And the last question, what books do you need to read before the end of the year? So for this one, I need to read like all the books, probably an unrealistic amount of books, but I'm going to say definitely need to finish the Broken Earth trilogy. That's top priority. Also need to finish the last 3 books in the Throne of Glass series, which I'm not going to pull them out, but these 3 here, Empire of Storms, Tower of Dawn, and Kingdom of Ash. Crash. Need to read those because I'm like a big fan of Sarah J Maas, and I haven't finished Throne of Glass, which means I haven't read Crescent City, even though those are unrelated. I'm just like, I wanted to finish Throne of Glass before picking up Crescent City. That was what I was supposed to do, and I have failed at doing that, so I need to do that. I also still need to read Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, which came out earlier this year and was one of my most anticipated reads of the year. But I just finished reading The Dark Artifices, and I haven't decided if I want to read Ghost of the Shadow Market first before getting into this. Also, I haven't decided if I want to reread The Infernal Devices before I read this, because I read those last year. Yeah, so want to read this before the end of the year at some point. Alright, and that is my mid-year book freakout tag. Hope you liked it, despite it being super late, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye!